Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the book Refuge, and welcome to a video I'm so excited to make. So this is actually a part 2 because I checked and it looks like I made this back in April of last year. I made a video called Swoon-worthy heroes, and I realized that this year through the rest of 2020 and even the beginning of this year, I've read some more heroes who deserve to be on this swoon-worthy list. And so the way that I did this the last time, I of course will link that video up above if you want to go watch it. And then actually my friend Crystal made a reading vlog where she read some of my swoon-worthy heroes to see if she could understand why I was swooning for them so much. So the way that I do my swoon-worthy heroes is the heroes that make me feel like this have 3 attributes. They honor their love interest. They're very respectful to their love interest and to women as a whole or people as a whole. Not always other people, but for sure the heroine and women to the most part. I will show you someone who is an exception, but he's still swoon-worthy. And then their hotness level, because the swoon, you need some of the heat. I thought this was also really fun because there's an episode of Bridgerton called The Art of the Swoon, and just like seeing people swoon and stuff like that. Something on my camera. But anyway, let's get into this. Let us start this list with the historical romances that are on here, because I feel like that is such a fun place to find swoon-worthy heroes, just because there is the added like culture that they grow up in and the way that they're supposed to treat women, but often that they don't. Often we see women not treated with the proper respect that they deserve, but when it's done right in a historical setting, it is my favorite place to see a swoon-worthy hero. So I have 3 historical romance heroes to talk about, and I'm just so excited to do it. So the first one I want to start with is a book that I've talked a lot about lately, and an author that I'm really growing to love, and that is, in this one we have, sorry I wrote them down, how to pronounce the name, Royal Kendrick from The Highlander Who Protected Me by Vanessa Kelly. This is a book that I've talked in great depth about in different videos so far, but this one is about Ainsley Matthews, who she is a bit of a vapid woman. I'll say that. She's a bit spoiled, but she finds herself in a situation that's kind of serious. Her parents have engaged her to this very cruel man, okay, this very cruel man, and he actually has assaulted her before they've been married. Like, they're still affianced, and he assaults her, and she becomes pregnant by this, and she does not want him to be able to use her pregnancy as a reason to force her to marry him, because she's been resisting this so far. And it's such a, okay, side note about the heroine. I really appreciate about her the character growth you will see from this heroine in this book, because she's not likable in the beginning, okay? She's really not, and there's a lot of people who actually have like DNF'd this book, from what I see on Goodreads, because they didn't stand the heroine. She has an amazing journey to go on. So, but I'll put a pin in Ainsley because we're talking about swoon-worthy heroes. And so anyway, Ainsley is part Scottish. She has a aunt or grandmother, they're Scottish, and so they go to stay at their home. Now she's actually friends with the Kendrick clan. And Royal and her have had some interactions before, one where she actually kind of embarrassed him, and so, but they're friends, and they've been writing letters to each other back and forth, and he happens to be staying with his family, who is not far away from where she is hiding out at her old ancestral home while she's pregnant with this baby. And so he hasn't seen her in about 10 months, and he's told by his family that she's staying with her, again, it's her aunt or her grandma there, and so he decides to ride over and visit, and he shows up. There's hardly anyone there, just her, a couple servants, and the grandma, and he discovers that she's like 8 months pregnant. So he's like, what the heck happened? And so she explains everything. And the first part of this book, and all of this is explained in the back cover, even though it feels like I'm explaining a lot, they're setting up this story. So Ainsley's plan is she pretended that she was being punished for breaking up this engagement, which she actually was, but she used it as an opportunity to go hide in the country. And she's planning to have her baby and give it away to someone, because she doesn't want her baby to be in danger, and she doesn't want her life to be ruined by this either. Like I said, she's a little bit spoiled in the beginning, but she does want to do what's best for her daughter. And so when Royal shows up, she ends up asking him to take her to take in her child because she knows that the Kendrick clan will love her baby so fiercely. But the thing is, if she does this, they can't ever see each other again because we wouldn't want anyone to connect the dots that this baby girl belongs to Ainsley. So that is the setup of this book, is Kendrick. Royal is so infatuated with her, and he really has been. Like, this is a pining hero in ways. But he also is such an amazing man because he agrees to adopt this baby girl with pretty much no questions asked as a favor to her, and also he's just willing to step up and be a dad. So then this becomes almost like a single dad romance, in a way, because Ainsley goes back to life in town, only things don't get better for her. So eventually she's going to come back, and we're going to see how Royal wants her to be in her daughter's life, right? He wants her to have that. He understands the situation she's been put through, but he also is going to protect his daughter, you know, to make sure that Ainsley is coming back with the right heart and mind and attitude. But he is very devoted to Ainsley in this way where, like, he could have been seen as a sap. He could have been seen as kind of this, like, I don't know, really weak person for just taking everything that Ainsley dishes out, but that's not how it works. He is such a loving and caring man, and the way that his like, you can tell because the way he was raised. We get to see Royal's grandfather, and he just loves this baby girl that's brought into their life. He's also very suspicious of Ainsley coming back. There was like, I don't want to lose my now great granddaughter to this woman, and there's just something about Royal and the way that he was willing to step up, and the way then that the trauma that Ainsley's been through, right? Because for her first time, she was raped by her fiance. When they get the chance to be together, how respectful he is of her, and just how reverent he is that Ainsley would be willing to trust someone again, and that person will be him. So Royal just had to be on my swoon-worthy hero list. He is so wonderful and just delightful. So her books are so beautiful too. I just love it. Next, I have another Highlander to talk about. And again, this is a book I've been talking about a lot lately, but there's a reason for it. And sorry, not sorry, that we have Duncan McAlpin from Bound to a Warrior is on my swoon-worthy hero list. First off, y'all, I'll just give you a minute to appreciate this cover. It's okay if you want to pause it and look at him. It's fine. It's great. Did you get enough? Was that good? Yeah, he's pretty hunky. This story is amazing. And now I won't talk about the plot as much in this one because, again, I've talked about this book so much in recent videos. You can definitely find one where I talk about it. I do one about 5 random historical reviews where you can know more in depth about this. But the reasons why Duncan made it onto my swoon-worthy hero list is the way that this man believes in love. And he's dealing with a woman who has been pretty mistreated. She's been manipulated a lot in her life, but she is so strong, and she has this core of fire. And the way that these two first interact when they are bound together, not by anything that they have done, but there's someone coming after them, the way that he is so respectful of her. Like, I don't know if I've read another book where people have to get naked around each other and are so respectful. And also that she's not like a wilting violet about it or anything. She's like, nope. We're going to have to take our clothes off to let them dry. They have to go to the bathroom while they're connected to each other, and they've just met. And the way that Duncan just is amazed by Mercy, the way that he is just so awed by her. And he can tell that she's pretty jaded. He can tell that she is from a tough situation, doesn't know all this stuff yet. But the things that he's able to infer, and then the way that he acts around her, is just so precious to me. And he is very attracted to this woman. She's absolutely beautiful. She's very attracted to him. They're literally needing to huddle together for warmth. They are trekking across the Highlands, bound together. They are in dangerous situations together, and he's just constantly, he never sees her as a burden. He never sees it as easier to, like, I mean, obviously this is a romance novel, but he never thinks like, wow, it'd be easier if I like killed her or got rid of her or something. Which of course, because this is a romance novel, we're not thinking, but he's always thinking about how they can work as a team. And then eventually when he loves her and she's resistant to it, he's just so, like, he's always calling her courageous and feisty. And she's like, and you're being so chivalrous. And he's just like, you're going to remind me that I'm chivalrous, aren't you? When he's having these, like, lusty thoughts about her. She's like, you're so respectful. And he's like, if you could only read my mind. But like, he's trying so hard to, you know, never take advantage of the fact that they're having to huddle together at night. And it just makes it so much sweeter when she's ready for something to happen, because he respected her choice and her feelings all the way along the way. And I mean, as for hotness, I don't think I have to say much else, do I? I highly recommend. This is also the beginning of a series, The Warrior King. I've read the second book. I really enjoyed the second book as well. But out of the 6 Donna Fletcher books that I've read, this one's tied for my favorite one. And Duncan is definitely the swooniest by far. Then the last historical one I want to talk about, you know, I couldn't make a swoony heroes list without a Lisa Kleypas hero on here. I did restrain myself because the last time I put a couple on. But I want to talk about Tom Severin from Chasing Cassandra, which I knew that I loved because I gave this book 5 stars when I originally read it. But when I reread this book in December, I had forgotten how awesome Tom is. So Tom is a bit mercurial. He is maybe not as honorable as some of the others I mentioned. I know I said honor is very important, but for me it's his respect factor that is just so high, and also his hotness and just his brain is so sexy. But we have Cassandra, and Cassandra is the last Ravenel who isn't married yet, and she wants a fairy tale so much. Like, we meet her, well, we met her before, but we start this book at her sister's wedding. It's her twin sister's wedding, and her twin wasn't the one who like wanted to really be married, and so Cassandra's feeling kind of down in the dumps. And Tom happens to be in the room when she's saying this, and she doesn't know it because they're like in a study, and he's sitting in a chair, and he is like, well, I'll marry you. I want to give you all those things you said, because he sees her and he is absolutely enraptured. Cassandra is a plus-size heroine. Yes, we know it's not on the cover. Moving along. The content is great, plus-size rep, even if the cover is not. Okay? I'm just saying, the content is. And he just thinks she is the most ravishing woman he's ever seen. He wants her for himself. So this does start out as Tom wanting her as a possession. So it does start with that. However, he is like respectful in the way that he like wants to own her, because he's like, I'll give you everything that you want. I mean, we can have this. It's great. And she's like, but you don't love me. You just want me. And he's like, well, yeah, but I don't believe in love. Because Tom is very in his boxes, right? He's very like in his boxes where he only believes that he can maintain 5 emotions, and love is not one of the emotions that he can maintain. But Cassandra believes in love above everything else, and she is going to prove him wrong. Like, it is fantastic. And so we see them in the beginning of this book through different events that we have read about in other books in the series, and we get to see them interacting, and they both decide that they're not going to be right for each other, because she doesn't believe in love, or he doesn't believe in love, and she believes in love, and he wants her to have everything that she wants, because he appreciates her as a woman. He thinks she's smart and beautiful and wonderful, and he doesn't believe that he could love her the way that she deserves. But when someone impinges, I don't know what the word is, but impugns. When someone impugns Cassandra's honor, Tom steps up in the most incredible way. And I literally, like, I was bawling my eyes out the first time. And because this has like taken time, like they've been meeting and running into each other over like a 6-month to a year period, I think it is. It's you believe that, you know, in their interactions, they've really become friends, as well as there being this deep attraction going through them. And Cassandra just thought it would never work with him. And then he does something amazing. So once he lays it all out, I'm gonna tear up. There's this moment where they're in front of all her family, and she's been so embarrassed. And Tom is just like, sweetheart, it's gonna be okay now. Like, it's gonna be okay. And she just collapses into his arms and just feels so safe. And she has a wonderful family. Like, this is not a case of like her against the world. Like, the Ravenels are her family, and they are wonderful. And they're ready to do whatever they have to do to protect her. But there's just something about the way Tom just comes in like a knight in shining armor when he's totally not that person. Like, he's not that person to be a knight in shining armor. He's a business-minded. He does things with rational intent. But when it comes to Cassandra, he just goes crazy and does the most romantic things ever by using his business sense and using his ruthlessness to save the day in a glorious way. And then when he proposes to Cassandra, he leaves it all at her feet. She's not going to be forced into anything, even though all her family and everything's like, you should marry Tom now. Like, you should do this to save your reputation. He won't rush her. He's like, we're going to sit down and we're going to talk and we're going to work through every aspect. We're going to make a contract. Not a contract that's like real and impungible because yes, I'm your husband. I get last say. We know that. Whatever. But I want you to feel comfortable that you are going to get everything that you need out of this marriage and that I'm going to get what I need out of it. And there was just, for the time period that it's in and for what's being happened, like, that is so romantic for him to use his business brain to find a way to romance her that way. And, like, oh my gosh, guys, he's so perfect. I love him so much. And so he doesn't start out seeming like a swoon-worthy hero. Like, he doesn't come in that way, but the way that she challenges his thoughts about things, the way that she helps him grow, and the way that he helps her gain confidence and realize that she's worth more than just being a trophy wife, because she's cool with that. Like, she's cool with being loved and, like, being that until he shows her differently. And Lisa Kleypas can just always get to me. And I just love these two. I need the one with the step back. Here's a picture of Tom. There's Tom right there. But I just absolutely, absolutely adore this book. And the hero, obviously. All right, where should we go next? Okay, let's go through this stack. Let us take a trip to the Mafia, okay? I have been rereading Cora Reilly's books, and I didn't think I was going to have someone from the Mafia as my swoon worthy because I didn't know how well the, like, honor and respect for most women would fit. But after rereading this book and just being brought to tears over and over again by how much I love this character, he had to be on my swooniest heroes because he just breaks my heart again and again. And so that's going to be Nino Falcone from the Cora Chronicles. This is book 2 in the Cora Chronicles. It's like book 9, 8 or 9 if you read all the way through her books. But this story starts with an arranged marriage, as a lot of Mafia books do. And this one is between Nino, who is the right-hand, he's the brother of the capo. They're right-hand men to each other. They rule Vegas together, basically. And they want to have peace with the New York Familia. It's the Familia, right? I think it's a Familia. I confuse them. Yes, it's a Familia. And Chiara is the daughter of a trader, actually. But she's one of the few, like, unpromised women who's of the right age. But the thing is, Chiara was raped by one of her uncles when she was 13. She was raped by him quite a few times and brutalized. And so she has lived in, like, a near catatonic state off and on for a while. And to be married off to a member from Vegas, I'm going to put this down because it's shiny, but I'll put up a picture of it instead. And she's like, this is a death sentence because what is promised was a virgin bride, and I'm not a virgin bride. And when we have our wedding night, there's this tradition called Bloody the Sheets, and she's like, I'm not going to bloody the sheets, and then he's going to kill me, and there's going to be a war, and it's going to be my fault. However, Nino Falcone, it is not specifically said, but it's believed that he is probably on the spectrum somehow. The way he thinks is he's a strategist. He doesn't deal with emotion. He doesn't believe he has emotion. Another guy. It's always the men who don't think they have emotions that just break me in two, guys. It really is. It just is. And on their wedding night, it's about to happen, and she just breaks down. And he can tell by the signs. He's like, who hurt you? Tell me. And so she explains what happened, and he's like, who was it? Where are they? And so she says, it's my uncle. And he's like, all right, well, I'm going to give them blood on the sheets. And she still thinks that he's going to kill her. Like, in this moment, oh, I'm smiling. It's so sad because he's like, well, I'm going to give them blood on the sheets. And she's like, a kind man would kill me quickly. And he's like, yeah, a kind man would, but I'm not a kind man. And so he puts his pants back on and his shirt back on, and he calls his brother, and he's like, brother, we're going to spill some blood tonight. And he's like, we're going to kill her uncle who raped her as a child. He's a child fucker and we're gonna kill him. And so the Falcone go and they get that uncle and they bring them back to her bed and they tell him to beg for forgiveness. And she's like, I'm never gonna give you forgiveness for this. And she gets to watch as they start to torture her uncle. And then they gut him on those wedding sheets. And so the next day, when it is time for the presentation of the sheets, they present the blood of this horrible, disgusting man. And guys, I can't tell you, I can't tell you how beautiful that was. I'm not a rape survivor or an assault survivor. I'm not. But I've heard from my friends who are and who've read this book that said that this was a very, like, validating experience to read, and just felt so powerful to them. And I can only imagine, because that's how powerful it felt to me. And I haven't lived through those things. And that's how powerful it felt to me for this woman who, again, this is a fictional world, but her entire worth is in this world is based on her virginity. And that definitely happens in our world still too. And not to the same degree, but to a point it does. And in some parts of the world, it probably still does. And she's just expecting death. And to have a man who is like, that means nothing to me. What means something to me is that you were brutalized, and when you married me, you became mine. You became my family, and my family will not be disrespected and mistreated the way that you were, and you will have vengeance. And that's the thing about the mob, okay? That's the thing about the mob in fiction, where it is exciting to me, and I love to read it, is because when there are those horrible wrongs done, we can go back to the Middle Ages for how we deal with shit, okay? We can go back and we can get retribution that way. In a contemporary setting, we use archaic measures to get our justice, because sometimes justice can't help us. But the mafia, the Camorra can. And I've gotten off track, but the point being, this is just the start of Nino being a swoony hero for me, okay? Because then he does something amazing. He tells Kiara, he's like, I am looking for a physical relationship, and I understand that you will not want to do that. Would you like me to seek my satisfaction elsewhere? He uses a very logical brain, and at the time for her, this is a relief. This is a freedom, and he's like, you will be safe. Your nights will be safe. You will no longer be expecting someone to come in and hurt you. Whether we have a real marriage that way or not, you are under my name, you are under my house, you're under the protection of the Camorra and my capo, and you are safe. And so, to start from there, guys, I'm crying so much. So he starts from there, and I mean, that would be enough to be swoony, right? But, of course, Kiara sees that about him. She's like, wow, I was not expecting this. So it takes us a while, and there's still a lot of triggers for her. She's still living in Vegas with some mafia men. So though they will protect her more than anything, she's still around a lot of death and destruction and things, but she's mafia born, so she's not, you know, unexpecting of that. But what's beautiful is as she gets to know Nino, like anything she asks for, anything the woman even mentions that she wants will just appear. She mentions playing the piano, and this perfect, large, gorgeous concert piano shows up in their home so that she can play, because that was her only escape for so long, was to play. And he doesn't understand like what the music is doing for her, but he can play perfectly, and they'll play music together. And so when she reaches the point where now she wants to experiment physically with him because she trusts him, but she's scared, she tells him, she's like, I want to try those things. And he immediately is like, he wants that. So he's like, of course. And she's like, and I don't want you to see anyone else. I want you to get those things from me. And he's like, okay, we'll start working on it. And they immediately start, which is basic things like starting with kissing, starting with touching, and working our way up to things. He will handcuff himself, and not in a kinky way. He'll handcuff himself to the bed so that she can feel free to touch him without like fearing or anything. And Nino is perfect, guys. Like, he's so perfect. And I just bawled my eyes out. I was not expecting to do that, but just remembering the emotions of this book. I have a picture up, that's right. Yeah. And you can't start here. That's the thing that's hard. For these books to mean anything, you at least have to start at the beginning of the Cora Chronicles. I highly recommend you read all of Cora Reilly's books, because it won't mean the same to you if you haven't seen the way women have been treated throughout the series or seen how different Nino is from everyone else. But by the time you get to his story and just the way that he is a fierce protector of her in every aspect, it's stunning. Like, it is stunning and it's magnificent. All right, time to talk about a bit more of a fun one. I decided I wanted to put Hale from Ringmaster by Brianna Hale up here, okay? This is an age gap. This is a circus romance, okay? This is fun. This is contemporary. This takes place in the UK. This is about a girl named Raya, who she has been pretty abused by her father, and we actually meet her in the beginning where she's running for her life with her horse. And it happens to be that Hale is the ringmaster for this circus that he owns and runs and everything. And he happens to be riding like back from town on his horse, even though, again, this is contemporary, but it's in the English countryside. And he sees her run into the woods on her horse, and the father goes after them with a gun. And so Hale intervenes in this situation and rescues her, and then literally invites her to join the circus. And he's like, you'll be safe here. You'll have a home. You will not be in any danger. We have a place for your horse. You can pick an act that you want to do. He gives this girl a home. This is an age gap. She's 17 when this starts. Absolutely nothing happens before that. I 100% promise you. He's very respectful. And this is more of a found family story for the first half of it, okay? And he's just so swoony for that, of like, there's no expectations. This circus rounds up people who need love. And he's there for it. Like, oh my gosh, it's just such a sweet story too. And there is some angst in it. They end up doing an act together where like he's throwing knives at her and stuff. And then they start to get closer when they spend time with that. And then she does have a birthday. And this is one of those, I really like reading these. I don't like reading them all the time because they're unrealistic when it happens. But I really like when there's a story with an age gap that, you know, whether the woman is like 18, 19, 20, and the guy thinks that he's just a dinosaur and is way too old for her, and everyone else but the guy is like, no, you guys should be together. Like, you're perfect for each other. And he's the one who's like, no, I'm too old for her. I'm going to ruin it. And the girl and everyone else is like, but Hale, you guys are perfect for each other. Like, what are you doing? And so I love that about him, because he is a bit of, you know, he's a nomad, but this is his found family. He's put this family together, and he really does like find misfits and find a home for them. And I really liked this in a contemporary setting. I loved the horse work that was happening in this. I loved the circus aspects. I read this not too long after The Greatest Showman. I mean, I think that's partly what inspired her as well. Brianna actually says something about it at the end, I think. Yeah, because she was writing this during COVID-19, and she just felt that, because she's actually from Australia and lives in the UK now, and she said there was something so freeing about still being able to, like, be free in the countryside, even though COVID was locking everything down, because there's a lot of, like, they're, like, nomadic, so they're, you know, their circus is traveling every week to someplace new, and so there's literally, it's like a little bit of historical plopped down in contemporary, because we still have some contemporary conveniences, but they're a traveling circus, so they're not taking advantage of all of those things. And I just really loved Hale. I love how caring and protective he was over Raya. I loved how respectful he was of her, and I just loved seeing their relationship grow. This is a slow burn because it starts with her, you know, being only 17, but this one, I really think if you are hesitant about age gaps or you get a weird feeling about it, I think this one could be a good place to start. This is a standalone Brianna Hale. It's one of her more tame stories that she's written if you're nervous about some of her kinkier ones. And I just really, really love it. I actually like won a digital copy of this from Tamika when she did an interview with Brianna Hale. And then I like I got a physical copy of it because I loved it so much. It's so good. So, Hale is one of my swoon-worthy heroes. Then, real quick, this hero I won't go as much in depth about, but Daniel from Teacher by Fiona Cole. So this is a story of, this is the last book in the Voyeur series by Fiona Cole, which all of the books in this series are so good. They are a bit of a darker thing. It revolves around this Voyeur club, which is basically it's like a pick your porn club. I know that sounds so weird, but what you can do is you can go into it and you choose a scene you want to see with how many people and what you want, and then you can go into a viewing room either with other people or privately to watch the scene happen for you. Does that make sense? Okay. And throughout this series, we've got to read about people being in the scenes, as well as people going to watch the club, as well as the people who run the club. Okay. So in this one, we're talking about Daniel, and I can't remember I should have wrote down the female's name, but she's someone we've actually known through the series because her and her sister were kidnapped into sex trafficking, and her brother, who is a big part of the club, he also he became someone who hunted down cyber sex slave sites so that he could find his sister. And he eventually was able to rescue one of his sisters, but not the other one. And so this is about the sister who is rescued, who we've gotten to see her for the last few books, and she's had a crush on some people she shouldn't have, and she's really scared about sex, obviously, because she was raped and abused for many years. And she wants to find pleasure in sex and to do that. And so some of her brother's friends who run the club, they give her kind of a free pass so that she can watch some sex happen and see how she feels about it. And so she ends up asking Daniel, who is a friend of her brother, and I think he's part owner of the club, if he would help guide her through this. And so this is an age gap story, and this is a teach me about sex story. And guys, it's so emotional. And obviously Daniel is kind of into her, but he really is getting into this to help her. And so it starts with just them watching scenes together, and really basic, nothing crazy, watching some sex together to see how she feels about it, to see if she's still able to be turned on by this. And then as things progress, Daniel doesn't want to pressure her into anything, and she doesn't expect anything out of him. There's a bit of miscommunication I don't like, but I love Daniel, and I love his patience and his gentleness with her, and his trying to anticipate anything that can go wrong in a scene. Before it, he's let's have a safe word, let's have a situation set up, even literally for self-masturbation scenes, right? He's let us have an escape hatch for you. There's no rush with this. You have your whole life to be ready for sex. We do not have to rush into this. And I just loved his patience and gentleness. And then once she's really starting to get into some things, his excitement to help her. Now you're not scared of sex. Now let's explore things together. And I just found him really swoony because this is a completely different kind of teaching than we saw in Twisted Emotions, right? But it is kind of the same situation. And this one feels even more real because we're not dealing with the mafia, and just the kinds of trauma she was having, where Kiara starts not wanting sex at all, just nothing, just stay away from me. Whereas the character in this one, it's been a few years now and she's really wanting it, but she doesn't even know where to start. And she keeps getting scared because there isn't someone there to help her. And so I just really loved how Daniel comes along and does that for her. All right. And then the last one, the king of swoony heroes for me. And you won't be at all surprised, but I realized when I made my swoony video last time, I hadn't read this book yet. And so I was oh my gosh, I get to put Tristan on my list. Another list where Tristan Miles can be at the top of it. So this is The Takeover by TL Swan. Hello, my name is Jen. I crow about this book any chance that I get. This is the second book in the Miles High Club, but You really can read them out of order. I promise you. There's nothing that's going to be spoiled by reading this one first. In fact, when I read this one, I completely forgot that I'd ever even read the book before it. I didn't realize that it was like the second book in a series. P.S. TL Swan just posted that she finished the third book the other day. So we're going to get Elliot's book soon. Very excited for that. I don't know how Elliot can possibly hold up to Tristan, but I'm still going to love it because I love TL Swan's books. But this book is super unique and just absolutely magnificent. This is a widow story. This is about a woman named Claire, and she has 3 sons ranging from ages 9 to 18, so it's pretty spread out. She's only 38. Her and her husband got married very young. They had kind of an oops baby, but they were sweethearts. They were going to be together anyway, so they've been together all this time. Her husband died tragically by being hit by a drunk driver when 5 years ago. So she's been a widow for 5 years. And she's been trying to keep their company afloat until her sons are old enough to run it. But her oldest son is only just 18. And, you know, we're many years away from that. And her company is in trouble. And so Tristan Miles, who is the head of the Takeover division, business acquisitions at the Miles Corporation, Miles Media, he steps in to try to buy her out. And he goes in being a real ball buster. And Claire's just like, motherfucker, sit down. I am not selling this to you. So they get off to a rough start. But here's the thing. It's mostly a hate to love, a hate on Claire's side, because Tristan is immediately intrigued by this woman and her fiery attitude and her take no shit anything. So he tries to ask her out so that they can talk about this again. And she's just like, fuck off. No. So then we don't hear anything more about it for a few months when she ends up taking a, it's supposed to be like a small business / like marketing retreat to France, where Tristan happens to be a speaker there. And so they end up running into each other and having a one-night stand, which turns into a weekend-long fling in Paris. And they just have so much fun together. Tristan is hilarious. They have some of the most fun, like, sexual experiences I've read about, where they're, like, laughing. And there's this really funny first scene where they're about to do it. And he's like, Claire, have you had sex with anyone since your husband died? And she's like, no. And he's like, wow. No pressure, Anderson. So she has this thought where she's even like, wow, Tristan Miles was fun. And I just love that about their relationship, that there's so much humor in it. And like, this is really sad and a really, you know, tough situation to come in, but TL Swan is able to make me, like, I laughed just as hard as I cried when I read this book. Okay. I was just snorting laughing sometimes. Just, oh my God. But anyway, so then we get back to the real world and Tristan is hooked on this woman. Like, this fling was everything he wanted. So also this is an older woman book because Tristan's 33 and she's 38. So it's not a big age gap at all, but it's a big deal to her, kind of, you know, because 33 on a man is a lot different than like 38 on a woman, right? And so he is ready to like pursue her, and like he knows that she's a mom, but he hasn't really thought about it that much. And so he ends up trying to ask her out again, and she's like, Tristan, like, I told you this was just a fling. Like, I'm a mom and a businesswoman and I don't have time. And he's just like, but we're perfect for each other, woman. What are you talking about? So Tristan, sweet, precious baby Tristan, goes to her home to see her. And this happens to happen just after Claire has returned home and is unpacking her suitcase, and her sons find a pair of Tristan's boxers in her bag. And her oldest son, he's a little impulsive. He freaks out. He's like, Mom, who have you been sleeping with? Are you serious? You're grounded. Which seems a little irrational, but it's pretty funny. And she's like, you can't ground me. Just knock it off. And like, oh. And Tristan happens to get there right when all of this is happening. So needless to say, it doesn't go down well. Tristan runs away screaming, limping, because he falls down the stairs. It's hilarious. And he's like, I'm just going to give up. This isn't going to work. I can't handle a woman with 3 kids, because he was terrified. Well, the next day, they happen to be hiring interns. And who should come in but Claire's oldest son, who took a swing at Tristan the night before. So, what's so swoony about this? What's so swoony about Tristan Miles is that, number one, he is so funny and so sweet and so respectful of Claire's previous relationship. He really is, even though, you know, obviously a lot of the drama for this book does come from Claire trying to decide if she can love someone again, if she can trust herself and her children with a new man. But Tristan, for the most part, he's very patient with that and is very respectful of that. And he just is obsessed with Claire. He loves her. And not only her, but there's a line in this book where when they're trying to decide to date, where Claire says, like, Tristan, there are 3 hearts connected to mine. And you have to win all of them. And Tristan takes that as challenge accepted. And not in the way of like, I'm going to prove you wrong. He takes it in the way of like, well, I'm going to see if I can love them. And I'm going to see if all of you can love me. And I'm going to prove myself worthy of all of you. And boy, does this man go about doing that. Does this man go about making these 3 boys who need a dad love him. And now, how Claire might react to that, yes, that is the hardship of this book and what can make it hard for some people to stomach. But overall, this book shines so bright to me, and I just find so much hope in it. It has so many tropes that I'm not a fan of, okay? I'm not always a fan of billionaires. I'm not always a fan of widows with kids. I'm not a fan of kids in books. But somehow, those specific elements written by TL Swan and written in this story make for my favorite book of 2020, make for one of the swooniest heroes I've ever read, and make for a trope-busting book. And I will always recommend this book to people. There's a reason why so many people have read it and loved it, and TL Swan will now always be on my top favorite authors because of this book, which broke my heart and put it back together and made me laugh and cry and snot come out of my nose and like coke come out of my nose when I laughed so hard, and it was so worth it. So there you go. There are some swoon-worthy heroes that I would absolutely love for you to check out. Tell me who your swooniest heroes is. Make sure you check out my video from previously. It's made back in April, so, you know, quality is at your own risk. But tell me some of your favorites. Thank you so much for watching this video. I put up new videos 3 to 4 times a week. Please check out channel memberships down below if you're interested, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.